Hi, welcome to the next edition of Watching the Standard Meta. And today we have a total of, I think, 5 decks to talk about, plus meta shifts for Standard. Is Standard in a good place? We're going to talk about all that. If you like this kind of content, make sure you smash that like button and subscribe. We're on our way to 1,000 subs. Let's get there together. Let's get into these decks, and the meta shifts for Standard. So, glaring 30% meta share for Izzet Prowess. Pretty sweet right there, with a huge sample size of over 1,500 of them showing up in tournaments. We have Jesguy's Oculus. Pretty good showcase here at like 11.24%. Then we have Mono Red Aggro dropping because the meta share should be shifting towards Prowess. Izzet because it's just a better deck. Then you have your Omniscience staying about the same. Control dropping a whole percent. Zerg going up for some strange reason. Not making a lot of sense here. Especially since your bad matchups are on the rise. Makes no sense why you'd be also on the rise. 1% towards Dimir mid-range, which is really good. It makes sense into Prowess. Mono Black Demons, good into Prowess. So they're on the shift going up. Esper Pixie's going down in favor of Orzhov Pixie. Makes somewhat sense because you can't really afford a 3-color mana base when you're having a very fast, hyper-aggressive deck like Izzet Prowess, taking up so much of your meta shares. So you kind of need to reduce how much damage you're taking by your mana base, pain lands, and other stuff like that. And the bottom, I mean, no one really cares about this side over here. But some of these I will be talking about today for the deck list itself. But overall, Standard is looking like a very unhealthy format. If you check out Pioneer, I think Pioneer is in a relatively good spot. It's more like I guess it's like 218 meta share decks versus a 28 and 11. So I guess it depends on how you define that. I'd rather face, I guess, 2 decks. If I face one deck and then the other deck and then back and forth, than just playing 2 Izzet Prowesses and then playing a Jeskai Oculus after. I don't know. But like I said, let me know in the comments what you guys think about this meta. I think it's actually kind of horrible. And what's different about Pioneer to this, like I said, on the Pioneer ones, the deck count isn't very high. So the actual meta isn't really defined, even though it looks like it's defined. Just because there's not that many people are playing Pioneer. This one, on the other hand, is a direct replication of what the meta should look like in paper, based on the fact that how much numbers are actually showing up in these tournaments. So this one has a higher sample size, which is more correlated, I would assume, to what the meta should look like based off of how well they're performing versus Pioneer, which there's like a fraction of these decks. I think it's only like 200 or something, 300 of the top deck. So overall, pretty bad meta here. And let's get into the spicy decks. I got 5, so let's get into those. So Azorius Artifacts. We've seen it down a little bit lower. Like I said, I had one of those to talk about. And this deck is pretty sweet. Iron Crags, you got some removal, some high noons, some cables reconstructions. I would play this on Arena, but I don't have the snares because I just didn't really invest, nor did I care about Ether Drift. Not a very good set by any metric. But in the sideboard, we have Authority of the Consoles for aggro. We have Ghost Vacuum for Graveyard Heat. High Noon for combo decks like the Omniscience. Unable to Scream for aggro. Stonebrain for combo. Lockdown for aggro. Another Vacuum. We have some negates for combo and control. And more aggro hate. So we have a little bit of mixture between aggro and mid-range / control. So pretty overall reasonable sideboard, addressing a lot of the main concerns. High Noon, like I said, it's a pretty good card across multiple different kinds of matchups. Against aggro, it's kind of nice to be able to reduce them down to 1 spell. But we have 4 other decks that I think are more spicy than this one. Let's get into those. So there's this Aftermath Analyst deck that's Assiduous Roots, Dredger's Insight, the new dragon that basically can kill something for 2 mana. We have the Riviant, nice way of putting counters on something after the thing's in your graveyard. Molt Tender for a little bit of ramping with elves. We have Glisa, we have some Nyx, some Mites, some Overlords, we have some Cauldrons, which help with the roots, and Misery Harvester and Misery as a little bit of a sweeper, and a little bit of target removal. Against aggro, we have Cut Down, and Go for the Throat from mid-range and other decks that have bigger creatures. Whip Cracker, solid card against tokens, I believe that's what this one is. Especially since I think it's MKM here. Duress, nice against control and combo. Then we have some Liliana the Veils for control, potentially mid-range. Investigator also for control and mid-range. Canker Bloom for artifact enchantment removal plus might. Vivian Reed for more hate against control and stuff like that as well. In mid-range for grindy matchups where you can just dig for a creature, also blow up an artifact or enchantment. And that is Golgari Roots. Let's get into the next deck. So next is this weird Gruul deck that I was trying to play, but again, I don't have much Ether Drift stuff, so I don't have the engineers and the experts. I'm missing one expert. And I think of all, or maybe 3 copies of the engineer. This deck is, of course, the Exalted deck. So the goal here is just to get them in your graveyard by pitching them to Light Shatter, FOMO, and just getting them back. And going from there, you have this Cauldron to get the engineer, so you have an easy, free way of triggering the experiment expert, so that way you kind of get like the pseudo Phoenix deck. Thrill Seeker, nice little combo also with Cauldron, pretty nice there. And we have a Boom Mobile, which is pretty sweet overall. You got Exalted to do a bunch of damage, but also when it ETBs, it adds a bunch of mana for activated abilities, I believe. Sideboard, we have Ghost Vacuum for graveyard hate. We have Barrage for like Oculus hate. We have a Braid for enchantment artifact hate. We have a Throwback for graveyard and artifact enchantment hate. Chandra for grinding matchups. Baloff for pixie matchups. Are the bounce decks. And we have a Bolt for a little bit of target removal for mid-range threats. A little small graveyard hate. Also could be artifact and enchantment hate. Enchantment and Atraxa hate. And that is our Gruul Exhaust deck for standard. We have 2 more decks to talk about. Let's get into those. So next is a Sultai Tempo deck. Or not Sultai Tempo. Sultai just kind of is town ain't big enough with a bunch of ETB effects that are interesting, like Awaken. We have Strategic Betrayal as a nice way to make them sack and exile their graveyard. Bargain to fill our yard up. Exhale. For the Regent, we don't have a lot of dragons though, but that's okay. I guess we have this as a dragon, so we have 5 dragons. Potentially this one as well. It's also a Regent. So we have like 6 dragons. Probably enough for Exhale. And have 2 Overlords, which just seems a little light. Especially since they're better than probably the dragons, but whatever. Duress for the board for mid-range and control. We have a Cut Down. Nowhere to Run. Maybe Betrayal for aggro. Overlord of the Mistborn in the sideboard for some reason. Don't really know why. I guess you could bring it in if you expect a lot of graveyard heat. Dispersal for aggro. We have another Bargain in case we need to start digging more. Reclamation for artifact enchantment hate plus graveyard hate. Spell Pierce for protection. So if they try to remove something that's really important, like a talent, up the beanstalk, we can protect it for 1 blue. That is Sultai's good stuff, I guess. We have one last deck to talk about that I ported over to Pioneer for a video in the future on this channel. So let's check this deck out. So there's Sultai Tempo. I basically said I ported this deck over to Pioneer for a video in the future. As Crab, Terror, Nowhere to Run, Analyze the pollen. We have some bushwhack, some seed the hopes to fill up the yard up. This time big enough to bounce our potentially crab or potentially the talents. Go for the throat for removal. Ghost vacuum for graveyard hate. Negate for control hate and combo hate. Preacher as a way to fight through decks that have brought in graveyard hate. So our main big threats like Terror are not as effective. So we have to pay a full 7 mana for a 5/5, not really cutting it. Reclamation, nice way to hit artifacts and enchantments, plus a little bit of graveyard heat. 2 Tidebinders in case they have a Troxa or some other thing with a good ETB trigger. Grinding matchups, I'm pretty sure that's what these are for. The Sobs, pretty sweet card overall, but I'm not sure if they're actually warranted. Tools, I'm assuming, is more for aggro. It's a nice way to gain a little bit of life back. Bargain, again in the sideboard for some reason. I'm not sure why you would want it. But you also have Eclipse as a nice way to also hate on aggro. That is all I have to cover with today. Let me know in the comments what you guys think about these decks, which one's your favorite, and I'll talk to you guys next time.